With me now to break this all down is CBS News digital journalist Sopan. Sopan's been covering the Trump campaign since the very beginning. And in Washington is Washington Post political reporter Amber Phillips. Okay, Sopan, I want to begin with you. Tell us about this new CEO. Who is he? And is he going to turn the campaign around?
Well, whenever there's a big Donald Trump conspiracy, a controversy or a scandal, or some sort of position that he takes, I always like to think, what does it say about how he'd handle his presidency? And the hiring of Steve Bannon to be CEO says a lot about where he gets his information from, what his source of information is, right? Steve Bannon has been in charge until yesterday of Breitbart, a site that has trafficked for years in conspiracy theories, birtherism, anti-immigrant rhetoric, anti-Latino rhetoric, anti-Muslim rhetoric. And, and for all the, Donald Trump has received a lot of charges against him over the last year that he hid all of those things. And the hiring of Steve Bannon kind of, for some people, might re-emphasize some of those themes. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of influence Bannon has on him. I will say that Bannon and Trump have conducted numerous interviews over the last year. As recently as June, after the Orlando shooting, Bannon, got Trump to imply that Obama once again has some connection to Islam, and casting doubt on his religion. So this will be interesting to see how much influence Bannon has and what that says about Donald Trump. A potential presidency.
Everyone very curious about this one. And Amber, Kellyanne Conway also added, actually getting a promotion. She's very established in the Republican Party. A lot of people say that she was pushing hard for Pence. She's close to Pence, close to Newt Gingrich. She's also the first woman in a senior position in the campaign who's promoted from advisor to campaign manager. What can she do for Trump?
Yeah, she's obviously a very smart woman. She has, in the past, even though she worked for Ted Cruz, has accurately diagnosed some of his problems, which is that he struggles with women, he struggles with minorities, he's even struggling with college-educated voters, which is not something Republican presidential nominees typically have to worry about. But to answer your question, what can she do for Trump? I'm honestly unclear because, to Sopan's point, I think that this campaign move for Trump is clearly him deciding to put people close to him who agree with him, who like what he's saying out there, who like the controversies and the conspiracy theories he's dipping into. And I think the shuffling right now suggests that Trump wants people around him who are just going to give the thumbs up and say, you do you, Donald Trump. And my guess is that, after a few months of trying that opposite, Kellyanne Conway, if she wants to be any sort of check on Donald Trump, is going to have a hard time in this new dynamic.
Amber raises a good point, Sopan. People are wondering if Paul Manafort is now out. Kellyanne Conway in an interview today said no, he's going to stay on the campaign. This was the same thing that they also said about Corey Lewandowski. Then a few weeks later, he was out. Do you think, you follow the campaign day in, day out, is he shoring up a bunch of enablers, or will he listen to these people?
Well, there's one thing that's clear about Donald Trump. He does what Donald Trump wants. He goes to rallies and he says what he wants. And he has said over and over and over again, repeatedly, as recently as yesterday, I don't want to pivot. I am who I am. He said yesterday it would be dishonest for him to change. So Manafort, 100%, when he came on, told RNC donors, told people, hey, Trump is going to moderate. Trump is, the Republican establishment has practically been begging Donald Trump to moderate. Trump does not want to do that. And if his advisors want him to do that, he's not going to. So what I expect from Donald Trump is he's going to do what he wants to do. At the end of the day, whatever he wants to do is what's going to happen. And if that lines up with what Paul Manafort wants, great. If it doesn't, Donald Trump does not care. Remember, he is 70 years old. He has been a certain way for decades. And not many 7-year-olds who literally make their money putting their names on things change. So, so I expect more of the same from Donald Trump.
Yeah, you follow the trail. You're in, day out. You listen to the campaign speeches. He said the campaign is me. And does he remain authentic, or does he weave off to a different angle here? I want to ask you, Amber, last night on the campaign trail, Trump made an impassioned play for African-American voters. Let's listen to that.
I'm asking for the vote of every African-American citizen struggling in our country today who wants a different and much better future. The African-American community has been taken for granted for decades by the Democratic Party, and look how they're doing. It's time to break with the failures of the past. We reject the bigotry of Hillary Clinton, which panders to and talks down to communities of color, and sees them only as votes. That's all they care about, not as individual human beings worthy of a better future. They have taken advantage.
Calling Hillary Clinton a bigot. What's behind this strategy and these comments, Amber?
Sure. Donald Trump is struggling with minority voters, in particular with African American voters. The Washington Post ABC News poll in August shows he lost support among them while Hillary Clinton gained after the conventions. In fact, African American registered voters have the biggest gap between Trump and Clinton than any other demographic right now. Trump knows that he needs to shore that up. Right now, our poll has him at, I think, 2% with African American voters. So this was his first direct appeal. You know, I question whether it comes too little too late. He has repeatedly declined to, speak at NAACP events, while Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine are kind of all over those right now.
You look, Sopan, at some battleground states. He's polling at like 0% with the African American community. I mean,
just to go back to something that Amber said is that 2% support in the Washington Post poll. That's double the support he has in the NBC Wall Street Journal poll that came out right around the same time, which is he's at 1%. To be honest, I'm not so sure that the speech last night was actually directed at African Americans because he gave it in Wisconsin. He gave it in front of a crowd that was almost entirely white. He has declined invitations in the past to speak to the NAACP and a number of other organizations. I'm not so sure that this was necessarily a speech directed to African Americans, because if he wanted to give that speech, he could have given that speech in front of an African American audience, and he's chosen not to do that. And remember, this is a candidate that months ago said he would order his Attorney General to investigate the Black Lives Matter movement. He has said that, he said without evidence that he has seen members of Black Lives Matter chanting that there should be a moment of silence, or they're chanting the name of the Dallas shooter, of the police officers from the shooting in July. So I'm not so sure that this was necessarily directed at African Americans. Only Donald Trump could, know that for sure. But if he wanted to give the speech in front of an African American crowd, he could have done that. And, that was a very willful choice not to do that.
Before I let you guys go, Amber, I want to ask you on the Democratic side, the FBI announced yesterday that they're turning their Clinton email notes over to Congress. Clinton campaign actually wants them to be completely made public. What are congressional Republicans going to be looking for in these notes?
Sure. They're going to be looking that the FBI, dotted their I's and crossed their T's in their interview with Clinton, which we believe is included in these documents. They're going to be looking to make sure the FBI basically, the path that the FBI followed in deciding to call Hillary Clinton extremely careless, but not press charges against her for her use of a private email server. I would caution, though, what can come out of this. It'd be fascinating if the public could see these documents, but there's not a lot that Republicans can do to press charges against Hillary Clinton, mainly because Congress doesn't have that power. The federal government, in terms of the FBI and Justice Department, do, and they already made their decision.
Amber Phillips from the Washington Post. Thank you, Amber. And Sopan, Deb, I want to thank you, Sopan. You've done such a great job also on the campaign trail for us. I love your notes in the middle of the night. So thank you for your coverage as well.